I am so excited about this episode of Nuclear News because there is so much going on and a revolution is taking place in this space. So we will dive right into what went on this week and blast through all the news. Let's start with price action. The Sprott Uranium Miners ETF was up 4% on the week. We're getting that relief rally I was talking about. Obviously, currently markets are all correlated, trading together. You have the S&P 500 up 5.87%, bouncing off that like 3,800 target I was talking about we were going to hit. I still think there's room for some chop in this market. I think we're going to get some volatility. It's not a great environment, but eventually the wheat will be separated from the chaff. The strong assets will diverge from the weak overvalued assets, and a regime shift is taking place. Now, there is absolutely no shame in allocating 1% of your portfolio to a hedge position on relief rallies like this to protect against further downside. I absolutely love hedging my portfolio because you're paid to ride out a bear market while not losing 99% exposure to your underlying long positions, which have great fundamentals. With that, let's dive right into what went on in the uranium nuclear market this week. Obviously, the uranium and nuclear market does not operate in a vacuum. And so it's an energy story. So let's figure out first, what is the energy setup globally? We have this. US natural gas prices just surged above $9 for the first time since 2008. Stockpiles are below normal as exports are booming and output from shale basins is muted. Traders anticipate higher gas demand this summer due to hot/dry weather. And so could the people running the show, the global elite, want this spike in oil prices? It certainly seems that all energy policies have been incentivizing this activity to happen. Maybe they want it to go up so that we can usher in a new age of green energy. And obviously uranium is going to benefit the most from this transition into green energy. And so we're seeing this play out. Obviously, we haven't been investing in our fossil fuel infrastructure. Obviously, this was a clear outcome, guys. If you watch the show and hear from a lot of our guests like Trader Ferg, people bullish on fossil fuels could foresee this, and it's all playing out. And uranium will long-term be the biggest beneficiary of this as the world moves away, as fossil fuel prices spike, as people are more and more incentivized to move into and invest in green energy. Now, that's the geopolitical energy market setup. John Quakes gives us the supply-demand setup. Why uranium is hot again. Global energy crisis means nuclear energy is back in demand, but there's a 50 million pounds per year supply deficit as nations pivot away from Russia, which supplies 35% of the world's enriched uranium. So we talked in a lot of other episodes about how the world is pivoting from Russia. Supply chains are moving west. There's an initiative and effort to obviously try to limit the amount of uranium purchased from Russia. Now, they supply 35%, so that's very difficult, but governments and entities are all trying to boycott it in any way possible. And so obviously the current war is driving a lot of what is going on in the uranium market, but there was a supply-demand crunch well before this war, and it just is making it worse and worse and worse. And so we have a 50 million pound per year supply deficit. Please keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the news cycle and what is going on in this space, because it is absolutely huge. You want that demand driver. Well, let's dive right into the demand side. This 70-year-old naval technology could have a path for a nuclear revolution. Dr. Sola Talabi is an expert in advanced small modular reactors, mini nuclear plants, ranging in size from tens to hundreds of megawatts. This is the revolutionary nature of the underlying technology of this space and where everything is headed. I think nuclear power has the ability to solve the world's two biggest problems: global energy poverty and global warming. Nuclear can uniquely address those issues. While still novel in the civilian energy sector, SMRs have powered naval warships and submarines for almost 70 years. U.S. naval nuclear reactors have logged more than 5,400 reactor years and steamed more than 130 million miles without a single radiological incident or radiation-related fatality. So it's safe, obviously, and because it's going to solve a lot of problems, it's going to be a big part of life going forward as the world runs on uranium. He asserts that SMRs are far safer than large-scale reactors. Worst case scenarios for traditional nuclear plants are loss of coolant or loss of flow accidents. However, SMRs take advantage of cutting edge design to eliminate the possibility of such accidents. So the only thing really holding nuclear back has always been kind of the psychology of fear of a big event happening. Well, SMRs eliminate the possibility of such accidents. Circulation through the core is accomplished through thermal convection. So the plant can remove heat generated by its fuel, even if electrical power is lost. Next generation SMRs are also designed such they don't require a pressurizing system like the one that failed at 3 Mile Island. SMRs should be less expensive than the large nuclear plants because they can be factory fabricated, and their smaller parts will be easier for more manufacturers to produce. It's not a technology challenge. With public and government support, SMRs could soon be powering the globe with carbon-free electricity to lobby. It's just a matter of awareness and understanding. Well, let's dive right in to what is going on with this space. We are not the only ones who know this. The entire world is picking up on it. Governor Dunleavy signs bill streamlining effort to bring nuclear microreactors to Alaska villages. Rolls-Royce's SMR needs 10,000 times less land than wind energy, proves the iron law of power density. Rolls-Royce obviously going big into the SMR space. Belgium's Nuclear Research Center will receive a budget of 100 million euros from the federal government to conduct research into small modular reactors. The world will run on nuclear, and this revolutionary underlying technology will enable it. And so that is what we are seeing. And companies like NuScale, PowerCore, and Rolls-Royce are taking advantage of this global renaissance and new technology. So that is the demand side picking up, growing exponentially for nuclear power. Now, what else is driving the demand for nuclear power and its very scarce above ground supply of uranium? The US and Japan announced a climate partnership. This comes from the White House on May 23rd, continuing to enhance efforts in cooperation in innovation and advanced technology deployment, including in such areas as renewable energy, energy storage, smart grids, clean hydrogen, clean ammonia, carbon capture, utilization and storage, carbon recycling, and advanced nuclear power, including, here we have it again, small modular reactors and advancing collaboration under the US-Japan Clean Energy and Energy Security Initiative, including several new bilateral task forces for accelerating offshore wind, geothermal energy technologies, and nuclear power. We know what the winner is going to be. It's going to be nuclear because it is the most dense and it actually solves the problem. It's not intermittent like these others, which we have covered. And so the US, the most powerful, richest country in the world, wants to invest heavily in its uranium and nuclear power infrastructure. Breaking news, US Energy Secretary asks Congress for funding to create a domestic source of enriched uranium, citing economic and national security vulnerability and reliance on imports from Russia's Rosatom, a possible US sanctions target. So we have partnerships with Japan. We have global energy supply scramble to shore up energy supply. We have the United States putting its full weight behind investing in nuclear infrastructure. And the only way to do that profitably is for the miners to pull uranium out of the ground at a price that incentivizes them to do so. And so that is why, in addition to the supply demand crunch, why the price needs to move higher. Climate worries galvanize a new pro-nuclear movement in the US as states race to keep plants open. California becomes a test case for how much the tide has shifted. The tide is shifting. That is what's exciting about this time. All over the world, countries, companies, cities, everyone is trying to pivot into a nuclear future. Finland's Green Party endorses nuclear power in a historic shift. Finland's Green Party voted overwhelmingly to adopt a fully pro-nuclear stance at its national meeting. Finland, more than almost any other country, understands the need for this. And so obviously they're bordering Russia, right? And so they are moving to the only logical alternative for energy security. Here's another story highlighting the drastic need for this fuel source. EDF nuclear failures undermine Europe's push to exit natural gas. So the failing nuclear infrastructure in France, because they haven't invested enough money into it yet, even though they plan to, is driving up the need for Europe to import gas from Russia. Because of this, France may need to import power from its neighbors this winter that may drive up regional demand for gas to feed power plants. And so all this does is highlight the dire need for Europe and all countries for that matter to invest in nuclear. And so the spot price is taking a breather due to the liquidity panic selling and the unwinding of the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. But because of the global renaissance taking place, and because we know that falling prices make the supply demand crunch worse because less mining supply comes on the market, and because we have the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust and other Wall Street vehicles taking supply off the market, we know that we are setting up for a very exciting time ahead as the world runs on nuclear. We'll stay on top of this market. There's so much going on. I cannot wait to continue to cover it as the underlying fundamentals continue to remain bullish. This discussion is for informational purposes only. Please consult a certified financial planner when making any decisions about investing. And do your own research before making any decisions. Investments are risky, and you can lose lots of money in them.